Have you ever wondered what Peppa Pig's life will actually look like when she grows up, and who she is secretly destined to marry? The show has already dropped massive clues, revealing her future husband, her adult appearance, and even her exact career path. After digging deep into various episodes, hidden details, and tiny moments that most viewers completely missed, we have uncovered the complete blueprint of Peppa's adult life. Let's break down the wild evidence hidden inside the show. And the strangest part is that these clues don't come from just one episode. They appear at different points in the series, almost like pieces of a puzzle scattered across Peppa's childhood. Once you put those pieces together, the picture of her future starts looking surprisingly detailed. Peppa's romantic future comes down to just two potential candidates, Pedro Pony and Danny Dog. These are the only two names ever brought up, both in official episodes and across the wild world of fan theories. Two choices, one clear answer, and the writers have been dropping subtle hints since Season 1. Let's start with Pedro. The show may have spoiled Peppa's endgame all the way back in Season 1 during the episode School Play. The playgroup puts on Little Red Riding Hood, where Peppa plays the title character, Danny Dog plays the big bad wolf, and Pedro Pony plays the brave hunter who saves her. Right off the bat, the roles are set. Pedro is the hero, and Danny is the villain. But here is where things get really interesting. Pedro gets severe stage fright, and Madame Gazelle literally has to hold his hand to get him out there. Yet despite being terrified, he still steps up to save Peppa. When the play ends, Peppa walks right up to him, tells him he was amazing, and kisses him right on the cheek in front of everyone. Pedro blushes bright red, and here is the kicker. That is the only kiss in the entire 20-year history of the show across hundreds of episodes. That moment becomes even more interesting when you remember how young the characters are. At this point, nobody is talking about marriage or relationships. It's just a school play. And yet, when fans look back at the scene knowing what happens later in the future, that innocent little moment suddenly feels like a possible early clue planted years before the bigger reveal. If you think that was just a fluke, the writers keep pairing them up. In the episode Hospital, when Pedro breaks his leg, Peppa draws a muddy puddle on his cast, and Pedro draws a flower on Peppa's bandage when she grazed her knee. But the biggest clue arrives in the episode In the Future. While having a sleepover with Susie Sheep, Peppa imagines her adult life and explicitly says, "And I will marry Pedro," or Danny. Notice how she named Pedro first?
And I will marry Pedro. Or Danny.
Anyone who watches Peppa knows she never says anything by accident. Later in that same scene, when showing all their friends grown up in a lineup, adult Peppa is standing directly next to adult Pedro, while Danny is placed next to Susie. Even the official Peppa Pig wiki lists Pedro as her primary love interest. And this is where the timeline becomes important. The school play happens when Peppa is still very young, while In the Future gives us the much later version of her imagined life. So if you connect the two scenes, the theory isn't based on a single moment anymore. It becomes a pattern that stretches from Peppa's childhood all the way to the future she imagines for herself. But if Pedro seems like the obvious choice, why did Peppa bring up Danny Dog in the first place? What we discovered about Danny's true role will completely change how you see this triangle. Keep watching to find out. If you're enjoying these Peppa Pig mysteries, make sure to subscribe. We've got plenty more coming. So what about Danny Dog? Peppa did mention his name, so surely there must be some romantic setup there too, right? Well, when you look at the facts, Danny played the villainous big bad wolf who tries to eat Grandma. Not exactly a dream setup for romance. Beyond that single play, there are 0 special episodes focused on Peppa and Danny, no romantic moments, and no artwork shared between them at all. In fact, Danny's official wiki page lists his romantic interests as Rebecca Rabbit and Emily Elephant, with other fan theories connecting him to Susie Sheep. It turns out Peppa likely threw Danny's name into the conversation just so she wouldn't sound totally obsessed with Pedro. And that creates an interesting problem for Team Danny. If Danny really was supposed to be Peppa's future husband, we would expect the future scene to give him a much stronger connection to Peppa. Instead, the biggest future clue seems to move in Pedro's direction. That doesn't prove anything by itself, but it certainly makes Danny's case much harder to defend. When you tally up the evidence, Pedro wins by a mile, leaving Danny with 0 chance. Now that the husband mystery is solved, what will adult Peppa actually look like? And believe it or not, her wedding will break the single biggest rule in the history of the show. Stick around because this next detail is mind-blowing. The show gave us a direct look at adult Peppa in the episode In the Future, where she appears as a near-identical version of Mummy Pig, wearing her iconic red dress instead of Mummy Pig's orange one. In the world of Peppa Pig, children simply grow up to look exactly like their parents, a rule confirmed on the wiki for characters like Emily, Candy, and Molly. Here is where things get truly wild. A marriage between Peppa Pig and Pedro Pony would make them the very first interspecies couple in the entire history of the show. Every single family in Peppa's universe stays strictly within their own species. Pigs marry pigs, dogs marry dogs, rabbits marry rabbits. Peppa and Pedro shatter that tradition completely. If she takes his name, she becomes Peppa Pony, a pig literally named Pony. And just imagine how unusual that would be in Peppa's world. The character species are such a major part of their identities that even their names often remind us exactly what animal they are. That's why the idea of Peppa becoming part of the pony family makes this theory so much stranger than a normal childhood crush theory. Even crazier is the detail about their future kids. In the future, Peppa envisions having children running around the house. If you slow down the footage frame by frame, there is not a single pig child in the room. Instead, there are two pony children playing, and Peppa is smiling right at them, meaning they are either adopted or the show's very first pig-pony hybrids. So we know who she marries and what her family looks like, but how on earth will they afford a massive mansion with multiple water fountains? Her future career answer explains everything. Peppa openly shared her future career plans in the future, claiming her job will be doing important work on my computer. Sounds impressive, until the episode actually reveals what adult Peppa is doing on her computer. Playing Happy Mrs. Chicken. That's literally it. This mirrors Mummy Pig's work-from-home setup, where working mostly involves a bit of typing, followed by playing games. Peppa is officially transforming into her mother. And there is something hilarious about the way Peppa describes this future. In her imagination, she makes it sound like she's going to have a serious and important career, but when we actually see what she's doing, it's basically the same relaxed computer routine we've already seen from Mummy Pig. If the theory is right, Peppa may not just be copying her mother's appearance, she could be copying her entire lifestyle. As for Pedro, his career aspirations are all over the place. In When I Grow Up, he claims he wants to be a superhero.
I will be a superhero.
While in Pedro the Cowboy, he's obsessed with westerns. Furthermore, Pedro's wiki character description labels him as lazy, forgetful, and prone to sleeping, making him essentially a younger version of Daddy Pig. Despite their questionable work ethic, Peppa states they will live in a huge house with multiple water fountains and a garden swing. Since water features and giant estates aren't cheap, either her computer gaming pays remarkably well or someone's parents are helping with the mortgage. The full picture of Peppa's future is finally complete, but one major question remains for true fans of the series. When you pull back the curtain on Peppa Pig, it becomes pretty clear that the writers have been dropping subtle lore for years, leaving clever Easter eggs for the parents forced to watch on repeat. The evidence speaks for itself. Peppa grows up to look just like Mummy Pig, spends her work hours playing casual computer games, marries her childhood hero Pedro Pony, and moves into a gated-level estate complete with water fountains. It's an oddly detailed future for a 5-minute show, but every clue hidden across the episodes points in the exact same direction, and that's why this theory is so much more interesting than it first appears. One clue might be a coincidence. 2 clues could still be coincidence. But when the same characters, relationships, appearances, careers, and even future family details keep appearing in the same story, it's hard not to wonder if there is something bigger hiding underneath the surface. Now, we want to hear from you. Are you completely sold on Pedro being her endgame? Or are you still holding out hope for Team Danny despite the wolf costume? Could there be another character entirely, like someone else from the playgroup, that we completely overlooked? Sound off in the comments below with your wild theories. If you enjoyed breaking down the hidden side of your favorite shows, smash that like button, hit subscribe, and check out our other deep dives. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.